Hello and welcome to the RV Family Summit. Today we have special guests Nathan and Marissa Moss from Less Junk More Journey with us today. So thanks for being here, guys. Nathan and Marissa have been on the road for a couple of years with their daughter, and they have been traveling everywhere from Tennessee to all over North America. So it's been really great following them. Make sure you check them out on YouTube. They have a great channel with awesome videos all about their travels. So their YouTube channel is Less Junk More Journey, and their website is lessjunkmorejourney.com. So welcome, Nathan and Marissa. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Well, today we're going to talk about your guys' journey, how you got started, and then we're going to also talk about like how do you get started on YouTube? How is YouTube going? And then also how do you get into an RV and how do you pick an RV? Because you guys have been through a few different RVs, so love to hear what you guys have to say about that. So let's get started with your journey. How did you guys end up going from Tennessee, working suburban life, having a baby, to living in an RV?
I think it all started, I was on maternity leave. We had just had our daughter, and Nathan saw a video on the internet of this family that was traveling with their little one, and he approached me, which was the perfect time actually. So he approached me and showed me the video and said, would you ever want to do anything like this? And I was like, absolutely, that looks amazing, because I just wanted to spend as much time as we could as a family, and that sounded like the perfect opportunity. And so we had actually been thinking about, we need more space, we need to add on to our house, we need a bigger vehicle. We were thinking about adding on, and then Nathan kind of thought, well, what if we downsize and then we could, have more time as a family? So that kind of clicked with us, the less stuff we had, the more journey we could have. And so we started working towards that, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that was our mindset. It's kind of the opposite of where we were going with everything, but it's been good.
And obviously that's how you came up with the name, Less Junk More Journey.
Yeah, we thought, why not put it on wheels and travel? So that kind of sparked everything.
And that too, we want to make sure, like, we don't tell people sell your house and get an RV. You may or may not, it may work and it may not, but that was the thing. Just the less stuff you have, the more you can do. And that's where we've gone with it.
And I love that, because I think we're such consumers that, just recently this happened to us in our house too, when we were downsizing. I couldn't believe the amount of crap I have in the house. And it's funny because once we got rid of it to like stage our house to sell, I was like, hey, this house is huge. We can actually stay here. You don't think about it when you're like suffocating with all this stuff.
It's so freeing. Yeah, it's a really good feeling.
That's awesome. I love it. And so now, because you guys had a little one with you, did you bring like all the typical like high chairs and strollers and all that kind of stuff too that come with kids? Like that's a whole extra bunch of stuff. Did you bring that with you in the trailer?
We modified a little bit. Instead of like your big bulky high chair, we got the ones that kind of screw on the table. So we would kind of get things that were flexible, multi-use, could store away.
Because the one we got that screwed on the table could be, this is an example, that you could fold it down if you needed to for storage. And if you wanted to, we could move it out to a picnic table outside. So we're constantly, even though some of that stuff costs more, if we could replace 3 things with one, we were okay with paying more for something that could do that. So we're always looking for stuff that had a lot of different uses when we could for her.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people at home would be sitting there going, wow, how can you do that with a little one? Because there's so much stuff that comes with it. You can go totally minimalist with nothing but, the carrier, or you can go a little bit of stuff but modified, and so you can be flexible and go inside and outside. So that's awesome. I love how you guys did that.
Well, and you also too, like a lot of the stuff we had was when you're in a house all the time, you need stuff inside the house to like entertain your kid and play with and do. But when you got a small space, we're actually outside of our RV most of the time. And so she's seeing animals, and she loves dirt and sand and
rocks and sticks. We'll buy toys and she just wants to play with.
Yeah. So it's amazing if you put your kid out in nature, like how entertained they are, and you don't need as much stuff. They find ways to entertain themselves with a lot of things too.
That's awesome. And it's funny, we were just having this conversation in my house the other day with our little ones. Since we've moved off the grid, we're outside a lot more too. And, their ability to like walk and maneuver over uneven surfaces and climb and swing and like do the things that, they weren't really doing a lot of at home, rather than like, less TV, like no TV almost. And, that was kind of like having to use their imagination to play a little bit more. And it's really cool to see how they grow as little people, and how their bodies, like, they are so strong because of this, like all these uneven surfaces and this different kind of lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
They do. They grow so fast. They're just immersed in, the nature and all the things around them. It's actually impressive to see how fast they grow and catch on.
And they do the best they can to replicate a lot of that inside the house from the toys, but it's just not the same as just getting out and doing some stuff too.
Right. Yeah. And that's amazing. So obviously your daughter's loving her lifestyle in her trailer. Is there anything that's been a bit of a challenge having such a little one with you?
Rainy days.
Yeah. Well, we try to follow the weather. And so in the winter, we're heading more south, and in the summer, we're heading more north, because we do everything we can to not be in our RV for extended periods of time. Sometimes we can't help it. There's times it's rained for 2 or 3 days straight, and there's nothing to do. Like the town we're in is like really small. Maybe there's nothing to do, like a museum or anything like that. So we just had to sit in our RV for a couple of days straight. And that's tough. You do want to try to, as much as you can, put yourself in a position where you've got the outdoors. But even then, I mean, I think she does pretty well inside, and she likes it. This is her home. She asks for it if we're not near it. And I think like routine is tough too sometimes with it, especially when she's young and had naps at certain times and had to be in bed at a certain time. If like we've got to travel from one place to the other, that can be a little tricky. But it's amazing how fast kids can adapt, and we've adapted to not always being on a super strict schedule.
I think socialization is something a lot of people worry about, and we worry about as well. But I think over time we've realized there's some good opportunities with that. She has to learn how to approach people and make friends, and it's always changing. She can't just like kind of sit back like we do as adults sometimes. She's taught me that you have to go out and create friendships. She's really outgoing. And so I think socialization is something you think of when you're on the road. So we try to go to things where kids are at, parks and playgrounds and things where we're like, okay, she needs to be around some kids. And we do that regularly for her, and try to meet up with families on the road who are doing what we're doing. And she's been good. She loves it. She's like, meet new friends. So,
she's very good around adults. A lot of, sometimes kids maybe aren't as comfortable talking to adults or engaging. And she's probably, we feel like she's matured a little bit by doing that, by spending more time with adults than maybe.
Aww. That's awesome. And pretty soon she'll be like Skyping and FaceTiming all her friends that she meets. That's great. Do you find that there are a lot of families out on the road? Like, I know there are definitely a lot of full-time families now, but do you actually run into them on the road?
It depends. I think seasonally, like in the winter, you'll run into more because there's fewer places to be because everybody's heading in the south. So if you're like in Florida in the winter or Texas in the winter, there's more families congested into those areas because they don't want to be north. And same thing as it starts to get super hot, you might see more farther up north. But in the middle seasons where it's kind of good weather throughout the nation, it can be a little harder if you're not near a larger city or if you're somewhere that's not as popular. But if you're in like a popular national park or if you're in a larger city, it's easy. There's more out there than maybe you think there would. It seems like there's not many if you don't watch where you're going. But
yeah, in the beginning, like when we first started this, we thought we were going to run into families all the time, and we're like, where is everybody? Nathan has said it's like they're unicorns. We know they're there, and it's like, where are they? But then we started realizing where the families are going, like he's saying, and we started we got into full-time families and started attending rallies, and you kind of have to like search for it a little bit at times, but they're out there. You just have to know where to go.
And you may need to take the initiative and follow people on Instagram and keep up with where people are at and share where you're at too. So it's not, if you don't take any initiative at all, you may not run into as many.
Right. Do you have any concern about doing that on social media? Like you guys are on YouTube a lot and Instagram things. Do you let people know where you are, or is that more of a safety issue that you kind of like are kind of like on different time than real life in social media?
Yeah, for the most part, because we learned this early on, like if we show where we're actually at, and we love people dropping by, but that's kind of scary to think about. People know exactly where you're at and what you're doing, and they know what your van looks like. If you pull up and your vehicle isn't there. So we've tried to have our videos not be real time where we're actually at, if we can help it. Just a precaution. But we haven't had any issues as far as like feeling unsafe because of social media or anything like that. I don't know if we take any other precautions really that other than just not being where we're actually at on our videos most of the time.
Yeah, I always wondered that because, that's something, you guys have tons of followers on social media. So, 60,000 people's eyeballs on your channel and, 200,000 views on some of your videos is like, that could be a little bit scary at times. So I think
People are so nice though, and RVers. I mean, RVers are some of the kindest people you've ever met. So it's actually opened doors for us to meet new people that way. Probably we never would have met the people we've met if it wasn't for our YouTube channel. It's kind of like an icebreaker a little bit. So it's been good for us.
Yeah. I think the pros of being open about your life outweigh the cons of privacy issues. Unless you have something in the past, we have met people who are like ex-military and they almost know more than they want to know, I guess, about what's out there, or they don't. There's reasons people don't need to know your identity. That sounds really sketchy, but for the most part, we feel like it's definitely better to put yourself out. Maybe not to the extent sometimes we do because we film a lot of our lives, but I think get on Instagram or get somewhere where people can see your life and you can share it with people.
And plus for the families and friends at home, I think that's really helpful for them to kind of, know that you're safe and like that you're having fun and, to follow along, vicariously through social media as to what you're doing. When you guys first set off on this journey, what were the reactions of friends, family? They think you're crazy or they're like, yeah, good for you guys.
They thought we were crazy.
Yeah. They didn't really know. There wasn't really a good word. They were like, so you're going to be gypsies or hippies?
I don't understand. The question was usually why? Like, why would you want to do that? Why does that sound fun? But I think once you start, like you're saying, when you put yourself out there and they see it and they see your journey, then our families have started getting it, and our friends, they're like, oh, I totally get it now. That looks amazing. You get all this adventure and family time, and so I think over time they've kind of seen what it's all about, and they've gotten more comfortable with our travels, and they've even joined us on our travels. We've had family and friends come and stay with us, and that is my favorite. I love that. Like my mom come and stayed a month with us when we were out. And I got to experience the Grand Canyon with her and, do hiking and wake up and drink coffee with her. And I think then they start to get it when they see it.
Well, it's tough to verbalize. We're going to sell our house. We're going to sell our cars. We're going to move away from pretty much the town we both lived in our whole lives. And we're going to go, but we're going to see some cool stuff and live in like 150 square feet or 200 square feet or whatever. And it just, when you verbalize that, you're like, nah, that doesn't sound like, I don't think I want to do that. But when you put it on video, especially, or images are good too, but when you over time show what it's about, I think it makes a bigger difference.
I was actually really, like when we first started this, a little like, I don't know, maybe a little embarrassed because of people's reactions. Every time I told them, I kind of didn't want to tell people anymore because I didn't want that negative reaction. But over time, now I love telling people. I love seeing their reaction. It's my favorite because I'm really confident in what we're doing, and I think it's been good for our family. And I don't know, so it's kind of, even my attitude has changed a little bit over time because I can see what it's done for us, our marriage, us as a family.
Yeah, and you're sitting back at life and commuting and traffic and all that, and like you had kids and you had a family to like see them and spend time with them, and you realize that you you don't get to see them that often, and that kind of sucks. And I think that's so cool that your attitude's really changed from like people being negative to being more positive about like what a great experience it has been. The same thing happened to me. I was a little bit nervous about moving, away from what we knew and off the grid and but you know what? Once you're doing it, it's so cool. I love when people say, that's so cool what you're doing. Right? I think that's one of the best things, right? And look how many people you guys have inspired now to do the same sort of like thing.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. And that's the reaction. We get 1 or 2 reactions when we tell people. Either like, that is so awesome, or they're like, okay, yeah, if that's what you want to
do with your life. Yeah.
They wouldn't say something negative, but you could tell by the look on their face, like, that is not for, and it's not for everybody.
No.
So it's fun. Yeah, we almost get a rise out of it now, I think. Now,
well, this lifestyle is a lot of sacrifice. Like, I know there's a lot of amazing things to it, and that's why we're doing it, because that outweighs the things you have to sacrifice. But yeah, we definitely wouldn't say this lifestyle is for everybody. I mean, because you have to give up a lot to be able to do these things, and you just have to kind of make up your mind what's most important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trade-offs.
When you guys are on the road and planning your routes, do you guys move fairly quickly in your route and then come back, or do you kind of go like slow travel through your trips?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it. We have sort of, because almost our entire family is within like a 2 or 3 hour radius in Tennessee, we use that spot as a home base where we stay. Like major holidays and things like that, like Thanksgiving and Christmas will be in that spot as our home base. We still stay in our RV. We just stay in an RV park or stay with family in those areas. But the rest of the year, at least 2/3 of the year, like you're saying, we pick out 2 or 3 month routes where we move pretty fast. We move a lot, more than average. We move every probably 3 to 5 days. We're moving from spot to spot, checking out things. Because that's just, I think we're kind of all or nothing. We're either like, we're going to slow down, spend some time with family, be in Tennessee, or we're going to like be just gung-ho about it. So I think a lot of it has to do with your personality. Some people have family that's spread all over the U.S. And if that's the case, you might move a slower route and move every 2 to 4 weeks and just see family along the way. But for us, since everything's in Tennessee, that's worked the way we do it.
Yeah, we've heard from guests that do it all sorts of different ways, whether it's slow travel, weeks at a time, months at a time, or like, quick travel. And so it's neat to see how everyone kind of takes their own kind of twist and turn it into like something that really works for your family. And I think that's probably the most important part. And also what kind of vehicle you're in is very personal to pick that. So can you guys tell us, I know you've been in a few different ones. Can you tell us what made you guys start off in the one you started off in, and then how you transitioned into different vehicles?
Well, our first RV, and we haven't shown this one a lot, it was like a 25-foot travel trailer by a company called Earthbound Telluride. And this is while we actually had the house, because we never RV'd before at all. And so we thought, you know what, if we're going to sell our house and live in an RV, it might not be a bad idea to at least step foot in an RV before we do it. So I found, and I don't think this is a bad idea, I found a used RV that was a really good deal. And I told Marissa, look, even if we hate this, we can sell this RV and not only break even, we can make money on it. And we did. We made money when we sold that RV. But it told us enough about it that we knew we wanted to do this. We said, we can do this. But we didn't want to do it in that RV. It was too small.
Well, we had a newborn, so we were like in 25 feet, no slides with a newborn. Had never been RVing
so
or camping and we were like, oh yeah, this is too small. So we're like,
she couldn't nap, and we were.
I call us the 3 little bears of camping, because our first one, like, we went small, and then after that we're like, okay, we need something huge. If we're moving from our house to an RV, let's get a really big fifth wheel. So we got like a 42-foot fifth wheel, and it was awesome. We loved it. The space for full-time living is amazing in fifth wheels. But for us, Nathan had never pulled anything that big before. It was just a lot of stress having to move something that big around. And because we do move so often, if somebody was staying put for longer periods of time, that might have worked better for them. But because we were
3 to 5 days moving a 43-foot fifth wheel was a lot.
Yeah. And then we started realizing, we don't really use all this space. We don't really need it. I mean, we could try something maybe a little bit different. And we started looking into the Class A. And
which is a motorhome. It's the one you drive. When people say RV, it's funny the different pictures they get of what an RV is. But it's probably the more common, the movie RV or, different movies. So we got the one you could drive because you could get out and she could check on Hensel if she needed to. You can actually cook while you're going down the road if you want. I mean, your house is with you all the time. And that was really nice.
The conveniences are really nice in a Class A.
And when you move around a lot, the motorhomes you can change sites pretty fast because everything's automated. But we learned, it was 40 feet. We learned that we really loved, and that's the thing, like, I don't think you should go all in when you buy an RV of like spending every dollar you have and having no other options, and then buy an RV that if you sold it, you'd lose a ton of money, because we learned along the way, we didn't know this at the beginning, but we learned we really love like national parks, state parks, boondocking. And that was tough to do in these large RVs. So we made it was a tough decision with the Class A. We said, you know what, let's sell this and get something smaller. And so we did. We took a lot of heat for it because we had a decent sized audience at that point on YouTube. But we sold it and we got what we have now, a 31-foot Airstream that's towed by a diesel cargo van. And it's been a great combo for what we want to do.
It comes down to what your priorities are. Mm-hmm. If your priorities are space, then get the space. If your priorities, like for us, they changed over time. And I think that with a family, your priorities do change over time some. So it's not uncommon to be like, I thought we needed this, and we did at the time. I feel like we made the best decisions we could at the time. Mm-hmm. But as we've started living this journey, we knew we're like, hey, let's get more space was more important, and we could just drive into the parks. But then as we started doing it over time, we realized, well, I think being in the parks is more important to us than the space. So then that's when we decided to make the change. And so the smaller you are, the more flexibility you have. And that's what we wanted. We're like, we'll give up space for flexibility. So it kind of comes down to what's most important to you. And we've loved that Nathan is so much more comfortable driving. I've even drove a few times and want to get more comfortable with that. And we can fit in more campsites. He always says you can fit you can't. You say you
can always fit a small RV into a large campsite, but you can't necessarily fit a large RV into a small campsite. So when you pull in somewhere, you've got a much higher likelihood of getting into where you want to get to, because the big campsites are the ones that are gone first. And so if you want to stay in Yellowstone, if you want to stay in Zion National Park, if you want to like maneuver into a city and park in like family's driveway or something like that, and you've got a 43-foot fifth wheel that could like hang on overhangs, and you got to make sharp turns, and you got to, it's not that you can't, I'm not saying don't get one, but if you get one, you need to be okay with maybe parking farther away, being a little more stressed, and realizing you may not be able to park inside of these national parks. And that space is a priority. If somebody has like 3 kids, 5 kids, I mean, don't get a 31-foot Airstream. I'm not saying don't, but it's going to be a real challenge. You might want to get something bigger. So some people are forced by what their family situation may not have the option of something super small, but just go as small as you can. I think there's a lot of perks for that.
That's what I heard. Like, you can't get, if you have a big vehicle, you're like at the back of the corner of the campground, you don't necessarily get good spots either within the campgrounds, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now what about the cargo van? What made you guys choose a cargo van over a truck?
Yeah. Marissa was not crazy about it because it's not really the cool vehicle. We got an Airstream.
It was not as cool as a truck.
I mean, we're pulling a cargo van, so... But 2 or 3 things. Number one was she and Hensley now, they use the bathroom very often. Marissa was blessed with a small bladder. And so we actually put a camping toilet in the cargo van. And so anywhere we're going down the road, whatever, she can get up and she can use that. It doesn't seem like a big deal to pull off the interstate and you could go in the back and use the bathroom in the RV. But over time, that really adds up. And it's not always the best idea some places to be pulling off the side of the road if you can help it. And so it saves a lot of time for her to be able to get out and use that toilet in the cargo van. And we couldn't do that in a truck. And then also she can get out and she can check on Hensley, our daughter, in the cargo van. She can move around a little bit and sit back there and do arts and crafts with her and talk with her. In a truck, you're like just kind of probably getting car sick, like leaning around, trying to lean back the whole time. So that's really nice too. And then the third thing that was really nice was the storage. You can get a large overcab, thing for a truck, or over the truck bed storage for the truck, but it's still not the same accessibility and storage as what you get with a van when you can open those 2 back doors and everything's just right there. And so those 3 things, we get what we gave up. Well, and it's cheaper for a van too.
It was half the price.
We got an 07 diesel van with a Duramax for like $10,500. Those were like 20 to 25 grand if you got a truck. Yeah. That was and it only had 80,000 miles. So to get a truck with 80,000 miles on an 07 engine, you're looking at 20, 25 grand. So it's less than half to get the van. There's not many of them out there, but if you can find them, especially with a diesel engine, it's nice. It's not sexy, but but functionality wise, it's been good. It's been good.
We like it.
That's great. When I first saw the van, I was like, hey, that's a great idea because you probably have so much more storage in there than anyone else.
Yeah.
So does that make it? The Airstreams seem like they don't have a lot of storage in them. Is that right? There's a little minimal.
Yeah. Because it's curved. It looks neat, but all your cabinets on top are losing a third of their storage because of that curve. And there's pretty much no storage underneath. There's not much at all. So the van is like
That's all we got.
Yeah, we're like, we need a good logical source for our storage if we're going to do an Airstream.
And do you take out the back bench in the cargo van too to have a little bit more storage and less seats than just the three of you?
Well, the one I bought had nothing in it. We actually added back one bench for Hensley. So it's a 12 passenger. So there was, I think, 4 benches to start with. So it's like your back 2 benches are gone. So it depends on what size you get. You can get, ours isn't even the longest van you could get. You can get a 15 passenger one that would be even longer and have more storage. But we didn't want that length in case we went into cities and stuff. We didn't think we needed that.
And I guess if you really wanted to, you could turn the back of it into your office if you need to get away and do some work.
Some people will. They'll make that a camping space as well. So if we wanted to just take the van and go camping in it, I know a lot of people do that. They kind of finish it out, and it's definitely a possibility.
It is. With a toddler, we opted to keep toddler stuff in there, and we got our box in there. So our box are in the dry. They're not like outside getting the rain and all that. If we go somewhere, we don't have to lock them up because they're just sitting in the van. And everything's in the van. And no matter where we go, we got all of our hiking stuff, bike stuff. It's all sitting in the van with us. So that's really nice too.
That's awesome. And then you can drive the van into smaller places that you can't take the Airstream with you then. And I think that's great. Yeah. Do you guys do a lot of boondocking, or do you mostly stay in RV parks?
We're out west. We do probably 50 to 75% probably boondocking. When we're in an area, when you're in the east, there's not as much of a place to even do that unless you're like in somebody's driveway, I guess. But yeah, out west. And that's the thing. It's not just a money saving thing. There's some places to boondock out. It's just outstanding as far as views. Like we had a better spot and view than we would have had in a campground a lot of the places we go. And you're doing it for free. So it's pretty neat. Out west.
Yeah, we'd love to boondock.
That's awesome. So now, how do you guys fund your trips? And is it something you saved up for before you went on the road, or is it something that you work while you're on the road?
I guess 2 different ways. The first was selling our house. We had some equity in our house, and we used that cash. That's how we got our RV and our vehicles to get started. And then the second way was to keep cash flowing. To start with, our plan, Marissa was a nurse, and I did web design online. So we were, she would just work. I'll let you.
Well, I do like a PRN, so it's kind of an as needed. So when we come back to our hometown on these routes that we do, when we come back and visit with family a little bit, I'll pick up shifts in the hospital as well and kind of keep that going. So that's how I've continued to make income. And then
when we started off just showing videos to friends and family, but then more and more people started watching those. And then, so over time, I've let go of a lot of my website clients and other work I was doing to take on YouTube stuff. Because as YouTube proved itself to make income, I was okay. We didn't just like drop everything and start doing YouTube, but YouTube's probably 80-90% of our income now, which took a long time. It took us 2 years to get to that point on YouTube probably. But that's a lot of it. And it's fun. It's fun work, but it is a lot of work. But that's a lot of what we do now is that instead of some of the other stuff.
So do you guys do, most of your income comes from ads or from affiliate marketing?
I'd say, let's see, percentages, 30% from YouTube ads, probably 30-40% from Patreon. If you've ever heard of that, we started that. That's been great.
It's been a way for us to kind of turn our knowledge into a business, if that makes sense. So we can build deeper relationships. We share like our travel maps on Patreon. We do live Q&As on Patreon so people can ask us questions and we can answer those. We do bonus material on there, bonus videos. So we just try to offer more information for people who are seeking that information. So it's been really good that we can, because we want to share that extra knowledge. It's just we're kind of at the point where it's like we can't keep doing YouTube as a side, but keep giving the extra information that people wanted. So we're like, why don't we just turn that into a way of making income? So that's been really good for us too.
And then it's, I'd say 30% YouTube, probably 40% Patreon, and then probably the last maybe 10-20%, which doesn't add up to 100.
Nobody's counting. It's okay.
The smaller percentage, a little bit smaller than either of those two, 20% or whatever, is like probably affiliate stuff, Amazon and things like that. We're linking products and that kind of thing.
Well, thanks for sharing that insight, because I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought affiliate marketing would bring in more income. So can you tell us a little bit about Patreon before we let you guys go for today? What is it's fairly new, and it's more of a platform for people to just get a deeper knowledge. Is that right?
Yeah, well, what it is, I don't think Patreon's a place you start. You build an audience first. So I wouldn't just launch a Patreon page and expect it to take off. You want to build your audience on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But it's basically for creators who need a way, or their audience is asking for more. Our audience was saying, we want more of you guys. We want more information. We want to see you more. We said, well, we can't just take more time to do that, and we've got to be able to make a living. We can't just take away from nursing and web design to do that.
We had to kind of let go of something to make that happen, if that makes sense.
And so our audience, we said, well, we'll create this page. And they'd asked us for over a year to create a Patreon page. We're like, no, we don't really want to do that. But we created the page and said, hey, if you guys want us to do this, show us you want to do this on Patreon. And they did. They really supported us. So it's a regular monthly income for creators, basically. Whereas a lot of your stuff is just one-off, or it's not as stable. You know that every month you're getting this income from people who support your channel. And so every month they can give $2, $5, $10, whatever they want to do toward Patreon. That gives you a more stable income. And it gives us the security to know that, hey, I'm okay with letting go of this client where I'm making money because I have this regular income from people who support us on Patreon. So a lot of people who watch us on YouTube have came over and have helped us monthly on Patreon to give us, and we give them more too, because by them giving us more, we give them more, I guess is.
Yeah, they're our pulse. They tell us what they want, so that's why they're like, hey, we want more of this. We want more of your travel maps, or we want more of, question and answers, or they kind of tell us like what they're searching for, and we can provide extra additional information to them. So.
Well, we do live Q&As, whereas if I did a live Q&A on YouTube with 60,000 subscribers, it could be chaos. I don't know what happened. But with Patreon, we got like a little over 400 patrons. If I do a live Q&A on there, and I think that's only for $10 and up. So we got like maybe 100 people potentially, but usually it's only like 20, 25 show up. Mm-hmm. So when you get 20, 25 in a live Q&A, I mean, that's really good in-depth knowledge, and they get to interact. They get closer interaction with us on Patreon that we couldn't give them on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. What a great, unique platform. Yeah, because it takes you and makes it a little bit more intimate for your followers that can see you on YouTube, but not the things that 100,000 people get to see. Is the things that only like certain people get to see. That's really cool.
It's just a little more personal, and we know people by their names and their faces, and we can be more intimate.
We felt overwhelmed on YouTube with all the people, and we enjoy YouTube, but at the same time, it's hard to get to that personal level with that many people.
I bet. That's crazy. So for our families that are sitting at home right now thinking, okay, I could do this. What are things? What's some last parting advice you could give to them before they go?
Start with where you're at, which is really obvious, but I would say if you don't have a way to have some sort of flexible income on the road, and that needs to be a part of your plan, I would do some side hustle, I guess, like you got to cut out something, but try to figure out some way to make money that could be more flexible, either with your current job, or you can learn a new skill. I think that's one thing to do. And the other thing you could practice where you're at is just downsizing. I think just practice. We had a 4-bedroom house, and we actually slowly took those bedrooms and no longer used them, or we took areas of our house and just sort of cut it off from the rest of the world to practice living in a small space. So do things that slowly get rid of stuff, and it makes it easier to let go of the house ahead of time. And those are 2 practices, I guess, of things that. Anything else?
That's good. That's what we did.
Well, it is. And those are things we did. We practiced side hustle in our spare time, which wasn't a lot, and then we downsized where we were at. Those are things we could do right then in our house for a year before we found it.
Very cool. Well, thanks for that insight, because that's not something I would have thought of. Like making yourself smaller space within your house. I think that's a great idea. Brilliant.
It's hard though. You want to start throwing things in that empty space, but you have to say no.
Leave them totally empty. Somebody comes over, they'll think you're crazy. But.
That is awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being with us on the RV Family Summit. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and excited to see more of your adventures on Patreon. We'll check it out there, and also on YouTube. and on your website, lessjunkmorejourney.com. And if you guys are looking to buy an RV, Nathan, I think you've also created a course on how to pick out and buy an RV with a lot better equipped with more knowledge when you go into purchasing one. And that's they can find out more. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've had 4 RVs, which some people might view as, why are you giving a course on how to find the right RV? But I think I would rather learn from someone who's had a lot of different RVs rather than someone who just bought one RV and has had it.
Absolutely.
I feel like we got pretty good what not to do knowledge. So, but it's findtherightrv.com. If you check that out, if you're wondering, do I get a travel trailer, a fifth wheel, a motorhome? I kind of go through some of the basics of, how do you figure out what to buy? What do you do?
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the road. And thanks for being with us on the RV Family Summit.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.